you're obviously not going to join the Tory party anytime soon. But, I mean, for some voter who's not convinced that, liberal politics are the way to go, what exactly are the Conservatives doing wrong, and what would you do better if you won, Nick?
Well, I can answer this question in two ways. I think there are lots of positions that the Conservative Party have taken nationally, which I think are bad for this country, and I can also answer it locally, in terms of the political representation in Parliament for Salisbury.
Right.
To start with that, I think that we've been represented by Conservatives here for an awfully long time. I mean, I think it was 1923 that the last time there was a Liberal MP in Salisbury, so it has been a Conservative place. However, the world is changing, and Salisbury's changing as well, and the political representation needs to change to keep up with that. And it is a much more diverse place than it was. It's not diverse compared to many of the big cities in the United Kingdom, obviously.
No.
But there are there's a broad spectrum of views, and the representation that we've had up until now has been very narrow and focused on a few issues, such as the church, such as the military, both important issues. But when was the last time that a Member of Parliament for Salisbury asked a question about poverty or about the environment or education in Parliament? It just hasn't happened for decades.
Okay.
And I think that we're being let down by our Conservative political representatives. And the part of what I'm saying is that I'm promising to do that differently.
Okay.
Nationally, I think the Conservatives made some big mistakes. I think that their position on Europe is completely wrong. They've allied themselves with far-right groups who are homophobic, who Holocaust deniers. These people are right-wing, unpleasant people, and they've completely alienated themselves in the political process in Europe, which is actually bad for this country. I mean, we could get into a discussion about Europe, but the bottom line is that we're stronger together.
Yeah.
And the Conservatives have weakened our position in Europe because of their political shenanigans, some promise that David Cameron made as part of his hustings bid. So that's a real shame. I think that's a real mistake. I also think that they are misguided on some other policies. For example, the married people's tax allowance. So they're going to give some tax breaks to people if you're married. I don't agree with that at all. It's a tax on single people.
Yeah.
So I live with my girlfriend in a flat in Salisbury, and are the Conservatives really saying to me that they're going to make me pay more tax because of the way that I choose to live my life? There's nothing unstable about our relationship. If we chose to have kids, it would be a loving, stable relationship in which to bring them up. I just don't think that the state should be interfering in my personal choices about how I lead my life. And I think the Conservatives, they're kind of moralising. They're kind of saying, well, we think it should be this way. We think that this model of social relationships is better, and therefore we're going to incentivise it by tax. It's completely misguided, because people aren't going to get married or stay married for the sake of a few quid on their tax bill. So I think they're making some big mistakes nationally as well.
All right. Well, obviously you've made some strong charges against Tory party policy.
Absolutely.
I haven't held back there. So apart from policy, how would you differentiate? Pete's asking this question. How would you differentiate the Lib Dems from the other major political parties? We haven't talked about Labour much so far. For those who are kind of apathetic or alienated from politics and its jargon.
Well, I think it's a really good question. It's a really difficult one to answer, because I'm not allowed to mention any policies, and I'm not allowed to talk in jargon. So that's quite a challenge.
It's quite a challenge from Pete. Yeah.
I mean, I think I'd start by saying why I think that politics is important. And bottom line is that it's never going to go away.
Yeah.
Politics is always going to be there.
Yeah.
People are always going to have to make decisions about society and run things and represent people. And so we've got a choice. We can either disengage and not do anything, or we can engage and try and solve the problems which exist in our society. And if we don't engage, then it gets filled by extremists such as the BNP and others. And I think that's a real danger that young people have to be aware of, that it's not going to go away.
So we have to guard against apathy because of parties like the BNP.
Absolutely. We have to guard against apathy because of extremism, but also just because it needs to get done.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to do it. These problems are not going to go away by themselves. So that's the first thing I would say, is that politics in itself is important to do. And how I would differentiate the Liberal Democrats is, we could talk about, I can't talk about policy. We could talk about philosophy, and we could talk about liberalism and democracy, which I think are important concepts. I think if you look throughout history where they've been embraced by countries, you have people who are healthier, happier, safer, and more prosperous as well. But just on a kind of on a basic level, you don't join the Liberal Democrats if you're interested in power.
Mm-hmm.
If I was desperate to get into number 10, I wouldn't be a Liberal Democrat.
Okay.
I'd nail my flag to the Conservative or the Labour mast. Because, I mean, let's be realistic. We're not going to form a government like that at the next election.
No, probably not.
We're moving forward strongly, and we've increased our vote every general election for the last 3. But if you're Tony Blair and you're kind of a Conservative, but you decide that Labour's the best vehicle to get you into Downing Street.
That's what Tony Blair did.
I think that's what Tony Blair did. Yeah, I think that Tony Blair was interested in being in power, and I don't think he believed in things. He wanted to see things change, but he chose the Labour Party as a vehicle. He changed that, and it took him to number 10. Now,
right.
if you're kind of that kind of power-obsessed politician, you don't join the Liberal Democrats.
Yeah.
I joined the Liberal Democrats, and I'm standing for Parliament in Salisbury because I really care about my community. I really care about representing people's views and speaking up for them and getting problems solved.
Yeah.
And so I think you get a different type of politician in the Liberal Democrats. Maybe politicians which are more responsive, more accessible. I would even venture maybe even harder working for their constituents. And so I think that I think that's something which is attractive about the Liberal Democrats. You're coupled with very sensible policies and philosophies grounded in fairness, in liberalism, sustainability, and democracy. I think we make a really kind of common sense choice.
Okay, well that's an interesting answer, Nick. And I suppose if you are elected, you'll have to prove all that.
Absolutely. Well,
you set yourself quite
absolutely.
a task there, but thank you for that. We'll just take a break now and move on to the next part shortly.